Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some, and peace out to the rest of you. It ain't your boy, it's your man's. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in, shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So hear this out right quick. Here's a message, y'all. Straight like this. This is part 2 of my rant. In the first one, I tell you to reverse a particular war tactic. This one, I'm going to tell you to reverse another war tactic they have, and that's the narcissism. We men need to have a necessary level of narcissism, not in life, but strictly in dealing with them. And I'm going to tell you what I mean now. We already saw Jada ain't taking accountability for what she did. We know Will would be forced to take accountability for what he did. We already know R. Kelly has to take accountability for what he did. The society demands it. There are a lot of sisters saying that Bill Cosby should take accountability for what he did, even with the evidence that he didn't do it in the first furthermucking place. Accountability is for men. And the women are pretty much saying, we're going to judge you men by your ability to take accountability, but you don't judge us by that. We don't take accountability. That's narcissism. Always someone else's fault, never yours. Yeah. So I'm sure that the clinical definition of narcissism is more detailed than what I'm talking about right now. But what I mean is that narcissism that they show is something we need to start showing with them. Because they're always going to come along and try to say that it's your fault. J Cash, they're going to do this with you. From what you said, they've already done it. They've already started. They're trying to put it on you when, in fact, they're not saying what they want. They're not explaining it. And not only that, but in addition to them not saying what they want, not explaining it very well, they're waiting on you to figure it out. And then they lie to you. Because let's be honest, J Cash, the way, from what you told me, the way you look and in the region of the country you grew up in, if you had so-called confidence, they wouldn't know it was confidence. They would say it was arrogance. Then they would blame you for that. That's why it is that only African-American women are doing this to you. Oh, you don't have confidence. You've been called arrogant before, I'm sure. And this assumption of your arrogance came from your phenotype. Or rather, they base the assumption on your phenotype. So on one hand, you arrogant, but another one will say, oh no, he don't have no self-confidence. So they can't tell your humility from low self-confidence and low self-esteem, and they can't tell your self-respect from arrogance. That's specifically African-American women and Black Canadian women and Black British women. That's specifically a Western Black woman's phenomena. Now, white women got problems, but that's not one of theirs. I mean, even white women ain't that bad when it comes to like how a man assesses himself. They assess a man through their friends' eyes just like sisters do. But they're not sitting up and just looking for every single way that a man views himself as some sort of psychological diagnosis. They're always trying to diagnose every man with some sort of psychological illness, unless, of course, he fits one, unless he fits one particular phenotype. Muscular, dark skin. If he's tall, that helps. They do not do this with muscular, dark-skinned brothers. They don't sit around and look at everything as being off balance somehow. So, J Cash, privately, and this is something I'm saying to all brothers, privately, yeah, you admit guilt when you did something wrong. It was your decision. You knew it was wrong. You admit guilt to yourself, internally. Even between each other, we can admit that. We do not owe it to them to admit guilt even when we are wrong. And take blame even when we are wrong. We owe it to ourselves, yes, but not to them because they would not do it. And that's a weapon that they use. It's never their fault. So if you do cheat, you got something to fix. But you don't need to admit to them. No, you admit it to yourself. You fix it. But you don't go admitting to them because if you catch them cheating, it's still going to be about what you didn't do and what you didn't have and what you were not. But if you just ask for a woman to be attractive and have a good attitude, you will not get that. So if you do cheat with another woman that's attractive and has a good attitude to you, because she can smell the first woman on you, that's when they start doing that, and you decide to go ahead and take advantage of that, She gonna say it's all your fault. No, it's your fault. You admit that privately. It is also her fault. How come you can't act like she can and be attractive? How come it's either or with you? Either, you look like, I don't know, either you look like that stripper at the club. You look just as good as she does. I'm assuming that they look in other cities like they do in Atlanta. I think in other towns they look pretty busted. And I'm basing this off the 1990s because I've been Muslim since 2002. So point I'm making is, you're in either you're in good shape and you look good, or you know how to behave, but you can't do both. I mean, fit the guck out of here with that. You're the one that made the artificial dichotomy and forced it. You're the one with this artificial either or that's not necessary. That wasn't me. I didn't make that rule. I didn't sit up and say, okay, if you are attractive, you don't have to behave yourself. If you know how to behave, you don't have to be attractive. I didn't say that. That's something you and your friend and your other friend and your other friend, that's something you all collectively as Western black women, and Western white women have done the same thing too. That's something you collectively as Western women have done. And the ones that don't do this, you silence them. I mean, goodness, if they're attractive to look at and easy to be around, you call them pick-me's and maybe even call them sluts and too easy. So no, we're still on you. That's what you got to do that, gentlemen. Internally, it is necessary. It's not an option. It is necessary for you internally to admit your own guilt. But that's something you do for your development. That's not something you do for theirs, for their benefit. Because like I said, it's war. Now, if you find someone that's not waging this war against you, that's okay. I'm not telling you to wage war against innocent women. If you find them, and they were available when you met them, and you got to be, okay, yeah, sure, you don't have to. But the majority, you ain't going to come across that. The majority of you are going to come across the crap test, especially when they're nice to look at, because they can. The majority of you are going to come across maybe, a great attitude if they're not that nice to look at. And they're going to know it. They know what they're doing. They know when they're nice to look at and when they're not. That's why it is that you don't find, we know this actually ourselves if we think about it. They know when they're nice to look at and when they're not. And that's why it is that they come with these great attitudes when they're not much to look at. And as soon as they look, decent enough for you to be able to wake up next to in the morning and not say, damn, should have picked someone nicer looking. As soon as they get, to that minimum, then the attitude gets bad because they can. That's a narcissism if I've ever seen one. And then when you find other places outside of the West where you don't have to face that artificial dichotomy for no good reason at all, then they turn around and start using these psychological projections on you. You a pedophile. Super sly. Or, well, you just poverty pimping. You taking advantage of their poverty. Well, I mean, you have to have more money than she does in the West. You already have more money than most of these women outside the West. So what's the problem? I mean, the women in the West are sitting up saying you have to have twice as much of the mating market value that I do in order for me to look like I do and treat you like you're worth anything. So you say, okay, well, let me go over here where I already have twice as much of the mating market value as they do. And then they get mad. So what you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to be that narcissist. Flip that back on them too. If you think of any other tactics of war that they've been using and we can flip on them, hit me up in the comments section. Let me know. Thanks for listening. I hope that one day this won't be necessary anymore. But in the meantime, I hope it helps. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.